Today on Stewart-Cox Family News. Truckers hit New York City after the Trump fraud blow. There was a no-go zone declared by the Trump truckers for the NYC 2024 crisis. Leave a comment below and now let's see the clip.
We now have an update on former President Trump's appeal against his New York civil fraud verdict.
As the city braces for an influx of truckers.
So we have that crisis unfolding. We've been talking about this for a long time, and we're feeling the effects here in New York. But on the other hand, we have a shortage of workers crisis.
Today, New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced new efforts to fight
hundreds of protests in New York City already.
From above, you can see the sheer numbers, the crowd massive.
Demonstrators blocked traffic all the way from 34th Street to Bryant Park.
So Hochul is deploying 1,000 state personnel from the MTA, state police, even the National Guard to help the city.
And they're going to have a security perimeter that stretches for several avenues here. And this is because of the two factors, the two issues that you sort of alluded to right there. The first is
former President Donald Trump and his co-defendants in this case ordered today by Judge Arthur Engoron to pay out more than $300 million, about $350 million in damages.
New York leading with New York business owners to stay in the city.
The number of legal challenges against Trump raising some questions now about whether they are political stunts to keep him from a second term or anything else.
The New York Attorney General Letitia James, who brought the lawsuit against Trump and his adult children in 2022. James, a Democrat and vocal critic of Trump, accused the former president of engaging in a decade-long scheme to fraudulently and falsely value his assets to acquire loans at bargain rates.
Donald Trump may have authored the art of the deal, but he perfected the art of the steal.
New York Attorney General Letitia James getting booed today in New York City. Her lawsuit led to former President Trump's fine of more than well over $350 million at this point in the civil fraud trial. He is appealing, and he says he did nothing wrong. Watch what happened when James spoke at the fire department promotion ceremony today at a church in Brooklyn.
Oh, come on, we're in a house of God. First, simmer down. I want to thank Commissioner Kavanaugh and Chief Hodgins for that recognition.
Oh, you know who's going to love that? FDNY Chief of Department John Hodgins telling Fox, quote, today's ceremony was about one thing, the accomplishment of the members being promoted. The members whose behavior, distracted from that celebration were an embarrassment and not befitting of the world's best fire department. And indeed, they are. And we congratulate all of those who got promoted today. And we thank them for the hard work they do every day in New York City.
Listen, there's so many indictments. So, I'm not a lawyer, but you look at New York, for instance, right? But now with the penalties and everything, $400 million to be paid on a victimless crime where there was no victim. No one showed up at a local police precinct to file a report. In fact, the banks that did business with President Trump wanted to do more business with President Trump.
And this breaking news, while we were showing you that, we now have an update on former President Trump's appeal against his New York civil fraud verdict. A New York appellate judge has rejected the former president's request to put a pause on the $454 million civil fraud penalty. But the former president did win his request to temporarily delay rulings that banned him from running a business in New York State and taking out loans from New York banks.
A New York judge ordered Donald Trump and his family business to pay more than $350 million in penalties for fraudulently inflating his wealth for financial gain. If upheld, the ruling could force Trump to forfeit a sizable chunk of his money and lead to a reshuffling at the Trump Organization, which is run by his sons Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr.
It's a ridiculous award. Listen, a fine of $355 million for doing a perfect job.
We asked Mark Zauderer, a veteran New York trial and appellate lawyer, to break down the judge's decision and what it means for Trump's business empire.
One of the things that the judge noted in a footnote to his decision was a reason why he was pulling back on the cancellation of business certificates is what he characterized as potential economic harm.
With that, we bring in Alina Habba, attorney for former President Trump. Alina, great to have you with us. Thank you for being here today. I actually want to start with that piece of sound from the town hall last night with Laura Ingraham and the former President Donald Trump. Watch this.
It's such a huge amount of money. You have to decide whether you're going to put up that bond and escrow to appeal. Are you going to do that? And where are you going to get the money?
I'll tell you what we're going to do. Number one, we'll have a lot of cash, but that doesn't mean he can take it. I mean, you know what he did? I think he looked at my cash and he said, well, we'll take all of his cash.
So, Alina, welcome. First of all, thank you for being here. And does that indicate that the former president plans to pay this bond, whether he's going to do the bond or pay this outright in cash, because he says that he essentially has that much cash? Is that the case?
I actually agree with my client's sentiment. I just want to add something that most Americans don't realize. Ms. James started out asking for $250 million. When she got a glimpse of just how wealthy the Trump Organization is, because they're a successful business in the state of New York, because they employ thousands of people and pay hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes to the state of New York, she upped that. She upped that ask. Why? Because her goal was to try and hurt the president, try and hurt his family, his company. And quite honestly, all I can say to that, without breaking my privilege and giving her a glimpse, which I would never give her the courtesy of having into our strategy, is that she has no chance. The appellate record is strong. The record is going to be very clear to the American public, and I look forward to having everyone see what we say and really get a glimpse of what happened in that 11 weeks in court.
But nonetheless, Alina, that amount, is there any Hail Mary pass that circumvents the reality that that money has to be paid, whether it's in a bond or in cash, before you can go to the appellate process? Is there any workaround at all?
So there's a couple things, right? And I'll speak generally. You can post a bond, which is an option. You can tell the judge that you should set aside the verdict because it's insane, which this is.
Will you be asking him to do that?
All of those options are on the table. I will never show my cards, Martha. You know I'm too good to do that. But I will tell you that we have a great team. I'm proud of our team, and we're working around the clock to figure out what strategically is the best move. One thing I can tell you is that her goal of tearing down the Trump Organization, her goal of tearing down the individuals that work so hard, including on his campaign, his family, and the list goes on, her goal is frankly not going to succeed. That's all I'm willing to say.
What did you make of the fact that she said, you know, when she was sort of guessing how he may come up with this money or what he might choose to sell off, she said, well, I look up at 40 Wall Street every single day.
Yes, and that chip on her shoulder is why we're here today. Look, this is a woman who ran on getting Trump before she even knew anything about the Trump Organization. She made good on a campaign promise, and she used Judge Engoron to help her facilitate that promise. Martha, all I can say is this. President Trump is one of the smartest businessmen, one of the greatest presidents we have ever seen. If she thinks she is going to take him down, if that was her goal, which we all know very well it was, and she got a strong assist there in court, but I will tell you this, that goal will not be successful. And that is the message I can give to everyone listening here. It will not be successful. We've seen it happen time and time again. Look at what's happening in Georgia. Look at what's happening with Miss James going to Washington right before she files the complaint. We have proof of that now. We're not talking about it because it's so damaging. This is all political. There's absolutely no factual basis to it. And I'm really looking forward to everybody seeing our record on appeal. I hope they take the time to read it so that they can get a window into what are the facts. They've done nothing wrong. There were no victims, and everyone made money.
You're going to see businesses fleeing New York.
Right. The New York Times reports several major investment firms are leaving.
Major players in the financial world are rethinking their involvement in the fight. Three giants, JP Morgan Chase, State Street, and BlackRock, have distanced themselves.
New York has become a legal banana republic.
Yeah, so you show me the man, I'll show you the crime. That was a famous saying from Stalin's chief of police. That's how the prosecutorial system is now working against Donald Trump today. Not only was this not a victimless crime, Sean, you want to think about the people who did business with Donald Trump. They made money off of those interactions, not just average consumers, but financial institutions. So for her to bring this case, I think is a legal and unconstitutional violation. And when that's overturned on appeal, she's now talking about seizing Trump's residences and real estate properties. I want to know what property of Letitia James is going to be seized when this is overturned on appeal for the damage this is doing to our country and to trust in the standard of the rule of law in the United States of America. We need accountability when this is overturned on appeal. But for now, I'll say this is a travesty of justice, and this should not happen in the United States of America.
I've been indicted more than some of the greatest criminals in the world for nothing. For nothing. If my plane flies over a blue state, that evening I get a subpoena to report to a federal grand jury.
Can you explain that to me? What has happened to this great constitutional republic that is supposed to be, governed by equal justice under the law and equal application of our laws? Every American should fear this regardless of where they stand politically. That's what I believe.
This isn't the American dream. This is the American nightmare. And this is not even about Donald Trump. It's about every other American at home who's now at risk of prosecutorial abuse as well. I think one of the great things that happened for this country was in the last week, seeing Fani Willis actually testify in that case, Sean. There, the American public was able to see bare. These are the people who are actually pursuing these cases against Donald Trump. People have no idea about basic geography or the basic idea or the understanding of the law as well. These are not the people that our founding fathers envisioned should be in charge of, let alone prosecuting a former president of the United States and somebody who's running for president of the United States. They're rolling over in their graves. We're supposed to be a country where, regardless of your skin color, and yes, regardless of your political belief, there is one standard of the rule of law in the United States of America. And I'm grateful that Donald Trump is standing strong, that he's actually said it beautifully the other night. Actually, on Fox, on the town hall, he said it. You know what my vengeance will be? Success will be my vengeance. There's a trap to try to bait somebody, to come after them in so many different directions that you get them to crumble or to make a mistake. I'm glad to see him going in the other direction to say that, you know what, we're going to chase success. Success is unifying. Success is how we win. And you know what? I have full confidence that that's exactly what's going to happen this November, even though they've created a complicated path to get there.
Well, let's bring in the chairman of O'Leary Ventures, Shark Tank Judge Kevin O'Leary. Kevin, so good to see you this evening. I mean, let me just jump right in here. Last time you and I spoke about the possibility of what the fine could be in this case. We now know what it is. It's more than $350 million. That's a huge financial hit. And I'm wondering, where is he going to get this money?
Actually, it's closer to $500 million with a 9% interest, assuming it'll take 18 to 2 years to actually settle this in an appeal, which I think it should be appealed. He'll work hard to raise it. I think he can do it. But I don't think this case is about Trump anymore at all, because you heard the governor of New York come out yesterday and say, look, everybody, don't be scared about doing business in New York. Because the only people we prosecute are people like Donald Trump who don't behave well. That didn't go over very well with the investment community because we're all asking each other, who's next? This was a victimless crime. Nobody lost any money. And a judge out of nowhere put on a $355 million penalty. I mean, who's next? So if you think
Kevin,
about
before I don't want to cut you off, but I hear about the so-called victimless crimes, but the laws on the books, falsification of business records in second degree, issuing false financial statements, insurance fraud, conspiracy, and all these different aspects of it, those are actual crimes. I take it your point is that these should not have been prosecuted?
Well, my point is there's never been a case like this in 75 years. Everything you just listed off is done by every real estate developer everywhere on earth in every city. This has never, ever been prosecuted. But here's the real point that people in New York should concern themselves with. You can put your money anywhere. I'm a real estate developer. Do you think there's a chance I would ever take a chance on New York again? New York is turning itself into a flyover state. I have to build data centers now. I'm not going to go to New York. New York has power. It's got fiber optics. It's got Niagara Falls. But no, we're not even thinking about it. We're going to places that have the exact same thing, where we have rational governors that have never done this to investors. This is about New York and its people. If I were in New York today and I was living there, I would ask myself, maybe we should hire better management. Why is this happening to us? Why are we becoming a flyover state? Why are investors concerned about putting their money there?
But shouldn't you ask that? Wouldn't those people also be saying, first of all, I do wonder how many people take issue with the idea that every investor is engaged in falsifying business records, that every investor is engaged in what has been accused of Donald Trump and the Trump organization. Because there's probably a lot who are saying to themselves, I've never falsified my business records. I know what a square foot looks like. I know what I can ask for and what I have the money to support. So I wonder to what extent that really is true. But on the second point, wouldn't there be many companies who would not want to do business or loan money to people like yourself or investors if they know that they can get away with fraud and there's no recourse to protect them?
Excuse me, what fraud? This is not about Trump anymore. When you get a developer that builds a building and he says it's worth $400 million and he wants to borrow $200 million from a bank, which happens every day, everywhere on earth, including every American city, every developer is an entrepreneur. They shine the light on their building and they say it's worth $400. The bank does its own due diligence, as was done in this case, because they're very good at it. The banks are very good, and they say, no, it's worth $300. We're only going to loan you $150 million. That haggling has gone on for decades. That's how it works. And then in this case, even, the bank that was supposedly defrauded testified and said, we didn't lose anything. We want to do business with this guy again. We'd like to. But the judge said, no, 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 no. Let's penalize this developer for $355 million. And if we're going to do that, let's penalize all the developers all across America. They've all done the same thing. All of them should go to jail, and we should stop building buildings. That's what the message is from New York. Even the governor herself is concerned about what this looks like to investors all around the world. It's not just U.S. domestic. All around the world, people are talking about what happened here. You really think people want to invest money in New York after this? How about we go somewhere else?
I think there are people who would, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to converse with you instead.
You just did.
It's only because I want to have a conversation,
you know what?
Kevin,
I respect
as opposed
you,
to just
I
having
respect
you tell
because
me.
you're a lawyer. You're a lawyer. You understand exactly what I'm talking about.
I got to tell you, I'm respectable for a number of reasons, Kevin O'Leary, but being a lawyer is one of those issues. But I'll tell you, when I hear your conversation, and I do want to converse with you about this point, I understand that there are legitimate concerns that were raised during the trial and will continue to be raised about who the quote-unquote, who is actually bringing the suit. It wasn't the banks who were saying that we as consumers or unsophisticated feel this way, but Letitia James, the Attorney General, and I know you want to expand beyond Trump, has suggested, well, it's about making the playing field level for those who are not the major and billionaire investors, but for those who are supposed to put business records out there, want to get a loan, the idea of making sure that they have to have the same true statements included as those who have a lot more money. Is there any weight to that for you?
Well, I asked you who lost money, and I'll make it even clearer. You and I, we're developing a data center together, and I say to you, we can go to New York, where this just happened. It's your money now. You're now an investor, and you're taking risk. You're an entrepreneur with me, right beside me. We're together on the deal. Or I can show you Oklahoma, North Dakota, West Virginia, where the governors actually ran businesses. Let's go there, where this never happened before. They have power. They have permits. They've got legislation that's supportive of entrepreneurship. Why would we go to New York? Why take the risk? My only point is, did we just diminish the great state of New York and the great people of New York? And shouldn't they ask for better management so they don't become a flyover state? Remember, New York has the highest taxes in the country, the worst regulatory environment, and it's incredibly mismanaged. And I'm pointing out now, on top of that, you get this insanity. A victimless crime, and forget about Trump. It's not about Trump. I don't care about Trump in this. I care about America, and I care about entrepreneurship, and I care about democracy and the fairness. The judicial system is now being criticized. People are asking themselves, the bar of New York, is this judge rational to charge $355 million in a case where no one lost any money? Is that good for the people of New York? Should the people of New York wake up to this and say, what's happening to us? Why is this becoming so perverse? Why are we the focus of this injustice? And nothing to do with Trump. I'm not supporting Trump. I'm supporting American entrepreneurship. And New York is slowly becoming the #1 loser state in America. I'm sorry, that's what's happening.
Well, that's news to the city that doesn't sleep. But I'll tell you what, the governor has said that legitimate business operations have nothing to worry about. I, as an attorney, am looking at this issue, wondering what the appeals process will look like, because they're going to delve into that very topic that you have raised. They're going to talk about perhaps the novelty of this being, as you described, not brought on behalf of, unsophisticated consumers who may have been duped, but decisions made by lone entities who wanted to engage in business with this particular organization.
Let me
That'll
put
be
up my
really
hand.
important. Go ahead, put your hand up.
I want to put up my hand and ask, Governor, who's next? Who are you going after next?
You want your hand up for that, Kevin? Put your hand down if that's the question.
Who's
what do you
next?
mean?
Every entrepreneur in New York is saying, am I next? Who's next?
Why should I do business here when there are so many more business-friendly states that I could do business? In Florida, in Texas, for example. We've seen Elon Musk make that historic move. So I think people are looking at New York and saying, unless you do something to change the vibe here, to turn this environment around, not for me.